makes us better and hopefully introduces us to some new folks too.
You pack, so you like package it and try to sell it to your clients as a product, how they can also affect their brand the same way. And have you thought about, do you do that at all in offshoots that you have all this production materials already?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. No. It definitely can be productized. But again, we might feature our clients on the brand show, but we wouldn't sell them the brand show per se.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
we would do.
that's
But for them as a package, like this is a service that it would be easy to set up. And and one of the models I've seen lately too is just we haven't done this, but one of the opportunities is a lot of companies don't have the budget right now to add an extra head to do social media, but they can outsource it to contract personnel. So you could actually put somebody in-house somewhere doing that for them, who would have access to all the technology equipment we have, but really would function as a member. It's almost like a temp staffing kind of stuff. That's another model.
It is. It's also another issue because there are a lot of people who say that if you're doing social media, it should come from a
So you
if
really
you have somebody else doing it for you.
Yeah, which is why they have to be kind of on-site,
Yeah.
embedded,
Yeah.
part of that
So
organization.
How do you guys choose who you're going to interview for that show?
That's a great question. I'll say what I think, and then you can add
what we think.
Usually it's targeted. I mean, we have a hit list of companies that we're really interested in, and some of it's just topical. It's based on the trends that we're seeing and what we think would be valuable. So we have kind of two categories of show. One is the thought leader show, where we get an industry expert who has just value in their information alone. And the other type of show is more case study show, where there's a company that's demonstrated kind of transformational growth in their brand. For us, transformation design is really important because we feel like with all the change in the world, companies need to adapt quickly. And there's a way to do that. There's companies that do it well and companies that don't do it well. And if we can find those companies that have a story that aligns with it, we want to talk to them. So that'll be the CMOs, the director of marketing of that company. One of my favorite interviews was Paula Berg from Southwest Airlines. And she came on to talk about really the evolution of their emerging media department and how they put it together. And it was all based on a conversation that started in our LinkedIn group. So some of those guests just come from random places. We were talking about great viral media. Somebody mentioned the singing flight attendant on Southwest. Paula Berg's team must have been monitoring the conversations because they chimed in.
Right.
And that was a great introduction for us to say, hey, come on the show, let's talk about it. So there is sort of a critical mass that sort of builds with the momentum of the show itself.
One other category of that is brands that we have had on in the past that are kind of pillar monumental brands. We like to bring them back on and every couple of years to see what they're doing, what's relevant, innovation, how they sell their brand from the inside out, internal culture, all the way to the consumer. It's kind of the good to great, how the mighty fall. We want everyone to achieve, but it's really giving those brands that have a solid foundation internally with their culture. They have a great logistics and distribution center already set up. They know their consumers, and so it's a touch point for new listeners that come on board that maybe weren't with us 3 years ago. They can start to hear some of the same messages, but then new, more relevant content on top of that. So that's kind of that third area that we do as well.
I think we got time for like one more question, and then
We'll get a pertinent
for
one.
the sake of we actually have another very interesting topic to cover.
One more
in social media. Certainly, these two are going to be available for questions here following. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, when you talked about the Southwest thing came out of LinkedIn conversations, how many people and how much time are monitoring your social media?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that that's a good question because Brooke is our person.
Right.
She's our guru who watches all that. Her job, not only does she work for our
Can
clients.
you repeat the question?
How many people and how much time does it take to monitor the social media buzz? Like, what's the conversation that might involve the brand show? How did we pick up on Southwest? But we have a specific person, Brooke, who's assigned to that. When she's not doing client jobs, she's doing that for 2 West. And what's really great is, before, actually, a really interesting story, backing up a little further. I felt like there was a vacuum about a year ago for that position. And what's exciting to me is this generation coming out of college today is so equipped for this. It's not funny. And it was, and credit to them, but we found that Brooke started with us as an intern, and there was a lot of reverse mentoring going on. She had a mentor in the company to teach her some other digital things, some more traditional, but then she was teaching us a lot about social media because she's digital native. She's always been in it. And that's just been invaluable. Having somebody who just thinks that way and reads that way teaches us all. And then I would also say that we all now, so many people that touch the brand show now just have sort of a second, almost like a second sense about social media, and we're all very aware of it. We're all checking the LinkedIn. We're all doing, just participating in the conversation, starting conversations. So the more you do it, the easier it is, and then it just
It
becomes
doesn't
part
take
of the
that much
culture.
time?
I don't think it does. I mean, for her it does. It takes
For her,
more than-
but what about you?
Yeah, no, not for me. I mean, and what's great for me is, it may take time, but I always learn when I do. There's always to me, there's a lot of value in mining that network and just building those connections. And so it's far more valuable than me just picking up the phone and cold calling people or whatever. It's relevant and it actually leads to something.
And I will have to say too, besides Brooke and the expertise that she has there, leading off what Keaton was saying, so we have a culture of lifetime learning, and so we're all about empowerment, all the way down to the point that we actually did one-on-one social media training with every single person within the company, where I went and sat down and saw every place that they are active in, where they're not active, what their comfort level online is, so we can say, this person's an internal champion, they can help us in certain areas, and this person's comfortable, this person isn't. They were interested, so we can start beefing them up a little bit, not only for them individual levels, but professionally for their own professional development, and then for 2S marketing as well. The other thing with that is, going back to the empowerment level, emails are always exchanging within 2S, and so if someone sees something that's relevant, that's interesting, whether it's with their team, whether it's company-wide, it's shared, and so anytime information is shared, the power of retweets, I mentioned all of those things. It's the same internally within our own pod.
And that's a pretty good segue to the next conversation here about knowledge exchange and how that works. But I did want to share one more thing before I left, because I was thinking about why do I love the brand show? What's so cool about it? Why does it really work for me? And I came up with social media has 9 lives. and I realized as I thought about it, what's so fantastic about it is it doesn't just do once. It just keeps coming back and coming back and coming back. And, the first life of social media, something that you put out there is really, it's the stream or the broadcast. It's the initial creation of that content. The second one is the live tweeting. So as we said, Brooke is in the room when we're doing the interviews, and she's tweeting live some of the comments that are made by the guests and that type of thing. And I love that, because when she's doing that, then those tweets are picked up, and it leads to the next 2 lives, the retweet and then the mention. So if we can get the retweet and the mention, those are, it continues in another form. And then there's the blog post. So once the podcast is done, and it's posted and archived, it lives a whole other life on that website permanently. And then after that, there's the email, which is a whole other life. And that email then goes out to an audience that subscribes. After email is RSS, because we have a population of people who just have us in their feeds. And then we've got search, because if it's in there long enough, Google certain topics, certain guests, and they're coming up in search. And then the 9th life, the last one, is the repost or the rerun. And so from time to time, we'll do a favorite show again. If we can't get a guest, or we're too busy to actually record, it's there and we can do it. And the guests that we have will then repost it on their own site. So most of the companies, Landor's has been a really good partner of ours. Every time they have new reports coming out, they ping us. We interview them about whether it's green brands or whatever. And they always give us some nice position on their website talking about that conversation as well. So it's the gift that keeps giving.